Welcome to the Great African Leadership Series, where we feature great inspirational speeches and quotes from African leaders.
Mr. President.
It perhaps is one of the greatest challenge of our generation, how to inspire global consciousness to recognize that the mutuality involved in making sure that the sustainable development goals work is a mutuality that serves the interests of all aspects, all parts of humanity. Unfortunately, the paradigm that global development has followed up to now is the we and us, we and them paradigm, which means what we can get basically is at the expense of other people. And the SDGs are making a very valiant attempt to try and change that paradigm, change our consciousness, change our attitude to recognizing that mutuality is a much safer, a much more enduring base for the future of humanity and for the growth of our planet. And to that extent, there are some of the most ambitious global goals that have ever been defined for us. And raising the consciousness of people, recognizing the value of going down this path of mutuality, that is a big challenge. Political leaders like myself, business leaders like him, civil society leaders, religious leaders, the whole gamut of people who are influencing public opinion in their respective countries and in regions. And I think it is an exercise that really calls for maximum support for people who can see a little bit further down the road as to what are the possibilities for us on this planet. One of the biggest problems we have confronted, I talk about us, Africans, the continent, is the flight of capital from our part of the world. Thabo Mbeki's commission that looked into illicit flows of capital made an estimation that as much as 50 billion United States dollars annually leave the continent by way of flights of capital from all kinds of practices and illegal operations. We have made a commitment to develop along with private sector as a key factor in promoting economic growth. It's important that those who are playing this role recognize the need to be fair in the way in which they deal with their host governments, and that therefore means that a concerted effort has to be made on their side as well as on our side to prevent this illicit flow of capital. You can imagine what a dramatic transformation would be the circumstances of our governments if they had even half of these monies to be able to underpin the activities in social areas and funding education and funding health and providing the structures for technical and vocational training, which is so very important. It's a very important aspect of the strategy that we have to go looking forward, to commit everybody, government side as well as the private sector, to recognize the rules. Let's get away from offshore tax haven type development of Africa, whereby the methods are found of siphoning these monies outside, and recognize, just as Mr. Pullman is saying, paying taxes is a good thing. People pay taxes in Europe, in America, so that the countries can work. We want the same kind of arrangements in our countries, and we have therefore to establish the institutions that allow us to have that objective. If indeed that customs union comes into being, that free zone market comes into being, it provides a tremendous opportunity for enterprises, for businesses to be able to grow their businesses to satisfy this market. And of course, there are other measures that have to be taken. We have to deal with the issue of the currency. But those are matters that we are actively confronting and addressing as we speak. So yes, I'm very optimistic that with purposeful leadership, with the correct analysis of the problems, as well as the definition of appropriate policy, these are matters that can be overcome, and that the growth of our economies, the spread of prosperity in our areas is very, very, very feasible. But it is extremely important that we pay attention to what we can design for ourselves as responding to the problems that we have, problems of ignorance, of poverty on a wide scale. What are the policies that we need to put in place that would allow us to address those problems? Once that definition is made, that understanding is there, dealing across the table with others becomes that much easier. I think that to me is the approach that makes sense. Measures that are being elaborated and rolled out now, especially something like the Continental Free Trade Area, is that we are putting in place the building blocks for accelerating the development of our continent and of our economies. And we're saying that if we remain loyal and faithful to the analysis and to the prescriptions that we're beginning now to elaborate, what has happened in China, what has happened in Brazil, what has happened in India, where in China, within the space of 30 years, 600-700 people have been moved out of poverty into middle-class conditions. We can emulate that here in Africa and make sure that over the next generation, the specter of mass poverty that has bedeviled us on this continent, that we banish it and unleash the potential. And Africa on the march, an Africa where the extraordinary talents and potential, the young people of this continent, you can imagine the energies involved in these young people trying to cross the Sahara and drowning in the Mediterranean, or trying to cross the Mediterranean on these rickety boats. What would be the conclusion for us if those energies were turned inwards and help us building our continent? I'm very optimistic about the future of Africa, and I think that these are the ways that we can make sure that that optimism is well-founded. I know it is said that the 21st century is going to be the Asian century. I disagree violently. I think the 21st century is going to be the African century, and I think that we can do it. Thank you.
And share this video with friends and family to support the channel.